You got promoted. You pay the bill. That's what my father shouted in my face. Not loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear, but certainly loud enough to shatter the precarious peace at our table. He was pointing at me, his face red, veins bulging in his neck. The reason? A dinner bill for $8,379.95. A dinner I hadn't planned, hadn't asked for, and a dinner that turned out to be a carefully orchestrated trap. I paid it, every last cent. Then I stood up, looked them all in the eye, and walked out of their lives. It's been 3 years since that night. 3 years of blessed, quiet independence. I'm Ethan. I'm 33 now, and I work as a director of research and development for a major tech company. My apartment is on the 25th floor of a building overlooking the city skyline, a space I earned piece by painstaking piece. It's comfortable, minimalist, filled with light, a stark contrast to the cluttered, emotionally heavy house I grew up in. My job is demanding, requires long hours, but I thrive on it. It's complex, challenging, and keeps my mind occupied. It also pays well. More than well, frankly. Enough that $8,379.95, while a ridiculous amount for one meal, wasn't going to bankrupt me. What it did do was expose the rotten core of my family dynamics and finally give me the leverage, or maybe just the final push I needed to extract myself. 3 years ago, the promotion that triggered all of this felt like the culmination of everything. 6 years of grinding, pushing boundaries, sacrificing weekends, navigating office politics, living on coffee and takeout. This wasn't just a title bump. It was a leap onto the senior leadership track, recognition for innovation, a significant jump in salary and responsibility. It meant financial security I'd never imagined, the ability to travel, to save, to truly build a life. It felt like I had finally built my own foundation, strong and solid, independent of anyone else. My first instinct, despite years of complicated family interactions, was to share my joy, to drive over to my parents' house, pop a nice bottle of champagne, and just celebrate with them. Not for the money or the title, but for the journey, the hard work. For them to finally, maybe just be purely, simply proud of me. That Saturday, I picked up a bottle of Veuve Clicquot. Not cheap, but fitting for a celebration, and a box of those fancy French macarons my mom loved but rarely bought for herself. I drove over to their place, feeling a flutter of genuine, hopeful excitement. I didn't call ahead, wanting it to be a surprise. When I arrived, their reaction was muted. "Oh, Ethan, you're here," Mom said, looking slightly flustered, as if I'd interrupted something important. Dad just nodded from his armchair. They didn't ask why I'd come. Dinner was the usual, slightly overcooked roast chicken, strained small talk. I kept waiting for a natural pause, a moment to share my news. It never really came. Finally, as we were having coffee in the living room, the champagne bottle cool on the side table, I decided to just say it. I cleared my throat. "Mom, Dad, I have some pretty big news. I got promoted. I'm a director now." I tried to sound excited, to convey the magnitude of it. I waited. A smile? A hug? "That's nice, dear," Mom said softly, taking a sip of her coffee. Dad grunted something that might have been "good job." And then, the inevitable pivot. Mom sighed, set her cup down. "You know, Ethan, that's wonderful. It really is. If only Liam could find his footing like that. He's been so down lately, since that graphic design startup fell through. So much pressure on him. It was like a physical blow. All the air went out of the room. My promotion, my years of hard work, reduced to a backdrop for Liam's latest failure. My achievement, however big, was only relevant as a contrast to his struggles. It was the same old story, the same old sting. My excitement shriveled and died in my chest. I felt like that 10-year-old boy again, being told to let Liam have the last cookie because he was younger, being told to hide my good grades so Liam wouldn't feel bad. I mumbled something about being tired and needing to leave. I didn't even open the champagne. I drove home in silence, the macarons heavy on the passenger seat. The hope for connection had vanished, replaced by that familiar, cold ache of being unseen. A weary resignation settled over me. Maybe this was just how it was always going to be. A week later, the phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice was jarringly, overly cheerful, brimming with an enthusiasm that felt utterly fake after our last interaction. "Ethan, darling, we've been meaning to call. We're just so proud of you. Your father and I want to celebrate properly. We're throwing you a big promotion dinner. We've invited some family. It'll be wonderful." She suggested the Gilded Anchor. My eyes widened. The Gilded Anchor wasn't just expensive. It was absurdly expensive. The kind of place you went for a major anniversary if you were loaded, or maybe to impress important clients. My skepticism flared. This sudden, lavish celebration felt off. It was such a wild swing from the lukewarm reception I'd received just days before. But maybe they realized they messed up. Maybe they didn't want to make a fuss to show me they were proud. The little flicker of hope, stubborn as a weed, sprouted again. Against my better judgment, pushing down the voice of caution, I said yes. In the days leading up to the dinner, Mom would call with little updates. "Oh, Aunt Carol and Uncle Frank are coming. Cousin Mark will be there." And then little passive-aggressive hints masquerading as excitement. "So many important people will be there, Ethan. It'll be a great chance for you to, network. Your father is so looking forward to showing you off. We want everything to be perfect. Liam is so excited, too. Maybe you can give him some career advice." The requests were already starting, wrapped in layers of supposed celebration. Stepping into the Gilded Anchor felt like entering another world. Marble floors, hushed tones, the clinking of crystal. The air smelled of truffles and money. It was beautiful, and immediately, I felt that familiar unease deepen. There were more people than just family. I spotted a few faces I vaguely recognized from Dad's work functions, and one distinguished-looking man the maitre d' seemed to know well, escorted to our table ahead of me. My parents hovered around him, laughing a little too loudly, gesturing animatedly. So that was it. This wasn't just about me. This was about impressing him. My parents introduced me to the man as Mr. Henderson, a prominent figure in real estate development. They waxed lyrical about my promotion, my success, my company, painting a picture of me that felt slightly exaggerated, like a sales pitch. Mr. Henderson offered polite congratulations, but seemed more interested in talking to my father about market trends. I felt like a display piece. The dinner began. The food was exquisite, course after course of opulent dishes, caviar, lobster, wagyu beef. The wine flowed freely. I noticed Liam, seated near my parents, ordering the most expensive bottle on the list with a smirk. Aunt Carol, across the table, leaned over conspiratorially. My, Ethan, this is all so grand. You must be doing very well indeed. It warms a mother's heart to see her son provide such a lovely evening for the family." It wasn't a compliment. It was a thinly veiled statement of expectation. I politely deflected, trying to steer conversations away from my salary or potential investments in various cousins' dubious business ideas. The conversation kept drifting back to Liam's difficulties, with Mom sighing dramatically about his bad luck. The air grew heavier with unspoken expectations and resentments. I kept track of the courses, the bottles of wine, the general extravagance, a knot tightening in my stomach. This wasn't just very expensive. This was astronomical. The waiter, a young man who had been unfailingly polite and efficient all evening, approached the table discreetly as people finished their desserts and coffee. He held the bill folder. He placed it gently near my mother, then stepped back, a silent, waiting presence. My mother picked up the folder. She opened it, her eyes scanning the total. Her practiced smile faltered for a second, replaced by a flicker of something unreadable, before settling into a look of deliberate expectation. She cleared her throat and announced to the table, her voice carrying just a bit. "Well, everyone, that was a marvelous dinner. The total tonight is $8,379.95. Silence fell over our end of the table. Nearly $8,400. I felt a jolt, but it wasn't surprise at the number. I'd estimated it would be high. It was the sudden, stark confirmation of the scale of the trap. "Mom, Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice even, projecting calm despite the adrenaline starting to pump. "Thank you for arranging this. I'd like to contribute. I'll cover $3,000 of the bill tonight. I thought this was more than fair, a significant gesture of appreciation for a party I hadn't wanted. Their reaction was immediate and dismissive. Dad scoffed. 3,000? Ethan, don't be ridiculous. This entire dinner, this celebration, is for you. Of course, you are paying the full amount. Mom added, her voice losing all its sugary sweetness, becoming sharp and cold. Yes, you know how expensive the Gilded Anchor is. We chose it to celebrate your success. You can easily afford it. My carefully constructed calm shattered. My voice rose slightly. My party? You didn't ask me if I wanted a party. You planned this whole thing, invited everyone, ordered the most expensive things on the menu without a word to me. And now you expect me to foot the bill? That's insane. Just then, my cousin Mark, seated a few chairs down, looked up, genuinely confused. He was quieter than the others, less involved in the family's internal politics. He hesitated for a second, then spoke, his voice cutting through the rising tension. Hold on, I don't get it. Aunt Carol told my parents. She said Ethan was hosting this dinner for all of us tonight to celebrate his promotion. She said he was treating everyone. A deathly silence descended on our table. Every eye snapped to Mark. My parents and Aunt Carol shot him looks that could curdle milk, pure, venomous fury for accidentally revealing the game. The waiter shifted uncomfortably. In that silence, the entire ugly truth crystallized. This wasn't a celebration for me. It was a meticulously planned shakedown, a performance designed to extract a massive sum from me under social pressure, likely also serving as a way for my parents to impress Mr. Henderson on my dime. Liam seized the moment, his face contorted with resentment. Oh, here we go. Don't try to act innocent, Ethan. They did this for you. You're just being cheap and selfish. You make more money than all of us combined. You owe them. You always think you're too good for this family. Aunt Carol immediately joined in, her voice shrill. Honestly, Ethan, after all your parents have done for you, and you complain about one little dinner, we all took time out of our busy lives to be here for you. This is just pocket change to you. Others chimed in, a chorus of accusation, entitlement mixed with apparent genuine belief in the narrative that I was the villain. My father, his face a mask of righteous fury, stood up abruptly. He leaned across the table, pointing a shaking finger directly at me. His voice was a roar, though slightly muffled by the restaurant's acoustics. Ethan, enough. You are a director. You earned it. You will pay this bill. Now, you are embarrassing me. If you refuse to pay for tonight, consider yourself cut off. Don't ever come back home. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Don't ever come back home. Not a threat about shelter, which I didn't need, but about belonging, about family connection. And he was willing to sever it, publicly, over a dinner bill that represented his own manipulative scheme. The sheer audacity, the raw, transactional nature of his threat was stunning. My chest felt tight, my hands were trembling, but a cold, hard clarity settled over me. This was the line. They hadn't just crossed it, they had obliterated it with a bulldozer. I looked at the waiter, standing patiently, looking utterly mortified. I wouldn't let our toxic drama spill onto him any further. Taking a deep breath, I calmly, deliberately reached into my jacket. I pulled out my credit card, the one I earned through years of sweat and sacrifice. I looked my father dead in the eye, then looked at my mother, at Liam, at Aunt Carol, and the others. I didn't say a word. I just handed the card to the waiter. He took it quickly, processed the payment, and returned with the receipt. The total was there in black and white, $8,379.95. I signed it, the pen scratching on the paper. Then I added a tip, not 15%, not 20%. I added $300. Liam snickered. Wow, $300 for a waiter you don't know, but you won't pay for your own family? That's hilarious. I looked him straight in the eye. My voice was low, sharp, and laced with ice. That waiter, I said, loud enough for everyone at the table to hear, has more integrity and deserves that money 1,000 times more than anyone sitting here tonight. The air froze. Liam's smirk vanished. My mother, regaining her composure, glanced at my card as the waiter put it back in the folder. "Oh, what a lovely card, Ethan," she said, as if nothing had happened. "You should add me as an authorized user sometime soon. It would be so convenient." I didn't respond. I slowly, deliberately stood up. I didn't look at my mother or my father or Liam. I glanced briefly at Mark, who gave me a look of quiet support. I looked at Aunt Carol, whose face was a mask of outrage. I looked around the table one last time at the collection of faces, some angry, some avoiding my gaze, some just looking confused. My voice was calm, firm, and carried just enough weight to be heard by everyone at the table. "As of tonight," I said, the words sharp and final, "I'm done. Don't contact me. Don't expect me at holidays. Don't expect anything from me again." I turned and walked out of the restaurant. I didn't look back. That drive home was the quietest of my life, punctuated only by the hum of the engine. The city lights blurred through a film in my eyes. It wasn't about the money. $8,000, while a ridiculous sum for a dinner, wasn't going to ruin me. It was the calculated cruelty of it, the way they had used my achievement, something I was genuinely proud of, as bait for a trap. The public humiliation, the stark, undeniable proof that their love, their approval, was conditional and secondary to their own agendas and Liam's endless needs. My mind reeled, flashing through years of history. The constant, exhausting favoritism towards Liam. The times I was told to yield because I was the older brother. The way my own successes, academic awards, scholarships, career milestones, were met with indifference or worse, framed in terms of how they made Liam feel inadequate, requiring me to hide them. My full scholarship to a top engineering program met with a brief congratulations, while Liam getting into an expensive, mediocre private college resulted in a huge, expensive party for him that I was expected to attend and contribute to. The endless requests for me to help Liam out financially, to get him a job, to guide him, while no one ever asked if I was okay, if I needed help. It was a lifetime of being a distant second, culminating in being treated like an ATM. A few days later, as I was still processing the emotional fallout, my phone buzzed with a notification. A bank alert. An incoming transfer. $700. The name attached was Mark. Almost immediately, Mark called. His voice was hesitant, full of regret. "Ethan? Hey, listen, I'm so sorry about the other night. That was awful. They were completely out of line." He admitted he felt terrible for not speaking up more forcefully, for accidentally spilling the beans, though part of him was glad the truth came out. "I saw it, Ethan. I saw the whole setup. And, look, I know $700 isn't much, but I transferred it. For the bill. It's wrong that you had to pay that." He paused. "Actually, I overheard more too. Before dinner, Mom and Dad were talking to Mr. Henderson, and they were really pushing how successful you are. And I heard Mom talking about Liam needing a huge amount of money, something about a really bad debt and a deadline. I think the party, the expense, Mr. Henderson, it was all tied together. They were trying to use you, Ethan. Use your success to fix Liam's problems and impress Henderson while they were at it. And then just stick you with the bill." Hearing Mark confirm the calculated nature of the trap, including the part about Mr. Henderson and Liam's debt, solidified everything. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment outburst. It was a cold, planned operation. I was deeply touched by Mark's gesture and honesty. He saw the truth and wasn't afraid to acknowledge it, even risking upsetting his own parents. Aunt Carol and Uncle Frank were at that table. I thanked him sincerely for the transfer and his call, explaining that while I appreciated it immensely, I couldn't accept the money. I'd paid that bill as the price of my freedom, and taking money back, even from him, felt like undermining that decision. Instead, I suggested we get dinner sometime, just us on my treat. A real dinner between two people who saw things clearly. Mark readily agreed. That conversation, that small act of genuine connection and validation from someone within the family circle, even if extended, felt like a lifeline. It was proof that not everyone was lost to the dysfunction. Weeks passed. The silence from my parents and Liam was deafening and, honestly, peaceful. It seemed my final words at the restaurant had been heard. I heard through the grapevine, via distant cousins and snippets on social media, that Aunt Carol and my mother were busy spreading their version of events. painting me as cruel, selfish, abandoning my poor family and struggling brother after achieving success. It stung, hearing the lies, but it didn't sway my resolve. It just confirmed that cutting ties was the only path to protect my own peace and mental health. Then the phone rang. It was Mom. Her voice, this time, wasn't sweet or angry. It was strained, tight with a desperate urgency. There was no preamble, no apology for the dinner, no asking how I was. "Ethan," she began immediately, her voice trembling slightly. Liam is in serious trouble. He needs money. A lot of money. He owes $120,000. $120,000. My blood ran cold, not from shock at the amount, but from the sheer, breathtaking audacity of the request coming from her now. I knew Liam had a history of financial irresponsibility, fueled by Mom and Dad constantly bailing him out. I suspected that $50,000 for the failed startup Mark mentioned was just one piece. But $120,000? That was a whole new level. I kept my voice calm, deliberate. $120,000? Mom, why isn't Liam calling me himself? And why are you asking me for that kind of money after you just ambushed me for $8,000 at the Gilded Anchor, threatened to cut me off, and publicly humiliated me? Her voice rose, tinged with impatience and rising panic. What does it matter who's asking? He's your brother. He needs it. There's a deadline. You have it, Ethan. You have to help him. She launched into a frantic explanation, rambling about Liam's bad luck, a terrible investment, unforeseen circumstances skirting around the real details. I suspected gambling or something equally reckless. We've tried everywhere. The banks won't lend him anymore. His friends can't help. You're his only hope. My patience, honed over decades of their antics, finally wore thin. My voice was low, hard, and unwavering. No, Mom. Absolutely not. Not a single penny. Her response was immediate, explosive fury. What? How can you be so cruel? So selfish? After everything we've done for you. This is your own brother. Your own family. How can you turn your back on us now? She screamed accusations, twisted past events, guilt-tripped, pleaded, then threatened again, implying I'd regret it, that I was abandoning my flesh and blood in his hour of need, that this would ruin everything. I listened for a few seconds, letting the storm wash over me. It wasn't anger I felt now, not even sadness, just a profound sense of finality. This was who they were. This was the core of their relationship with me. A purely transactional expectation that I would be their safety net, their ATM, while Liam remained the favored child, protected from the consequences of his actions by my wallet. Mom, I said, cutting through her tirade, my voice like ice. My decision is final. I'm not giving you or Liam $120,000. Or any other amount. Don't call me again. I hung up the phone. I sat there for a long moment, the silence in my apartment a stark contrast to the storm that had just raged on the line. It was over. Truly over. The hope was extinguished, the ties severed, confirmed not by my words at the restaurant, but by their actions and this final, audacious demand. Later that evening, as the city lights began to twinkle outside my window, the doorbell rang. Persistently. I hadn't given them my new address, but they must have found it. Checking the camera, I saw them standing there. Mom and Liam. Mom's face was a mask of desperate anxiety, streaked with dried tears. Liam stood slightly behind her, looking sullen, entitled, perhaps a flicker of fear in his eyes. The pressure must be immense, the deadline for that $120,000 looming. They had come for their answer in person. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to call building security. But the other part, the part that was done hiding, done being controlled, knew I had to face this. Not for them, but for me. To stand firm on the boundary I had drawn. To show them, one last time, that I was not their resource to exploit. I walked to the door, took a deep breath, placed my hand on the handle, and I opened it.